and welcome to my channel. My name is Anya and in today's video I will be doing a first impression on the Hourglass Vanish foundation stick. The foundation stick comes in this triangular packaging. It costs $46 US. I bought mine from the Sephora US website and you get 7.2 grams of product. I have the shade Blanc, which is the palest of them, and it's described as the fairest shade with a cool undertone. Now, I have combination skin. It has been a bit dry recently because we're in the middle of winter, and I have moisturised really well before this video. I'm not going to be adding an additional primer today because I've used my moisturiser as my primer, and that's been how it's worked the best for me the last couple of times I've worn makeup. But this is the shade of the foundation. Almost disappears against my background, but you can see it's pale. And to me, this doesn't necessarily look very cool toned. I have a neutral-ish undertone that leans a little yellow, but I can usually get away with most undertones as long as they're not either too peachy or too pink, because they end up looking straight up orange on me. On my hand, it looks like that. And I have seen people try this and use this in the past, mixed reviews. It's been a while since I've had people talk about it. This is the swatch sort of blended out, and I do think this is gonna suit me decently well. I went with the palest shade because I am always the palest shade. At the moment, my best foundation match is somewhere around the Fenty first release foundation, the Pro Filtr, in 100, which is the lightest shade. It is a tiny bit too cool. Another good foundation match for me is the Remarkable foundation from Marc Jacobs in the shade 10. That too is a tiny bit too cool sometimes. But the neutral undertone for this was the third or fourth option. I am never that option. Maybe when I tan, but I'm not tan, so I will be trying the shade Blanc today. Hourglass's claim for this foundation is that it is a revolutionary foundation stick with the coverage of a concealer, the fluidity of a liquid, and the weightlessness of a powder in a long-wearing waterproof formula for undetectable full coverage. The unprecedented concentration of pigment in this foundation provides maximum coverage with minimum product, concealing all discoloration and imperfections for flawless skin with a seamless finish. I am kind of excited about this. If this is waterproof and it holds on to my face very well, this might be a product that would be worth the money for me, because my problem with foundations, A, is finding a light enough shade, but also having something that will stay put, not get super oily and start sliding around, but also not emphasizing any dryness and texture. I have combination skin. At the moment it is a bit dry, but with makeup on I get oily, and my problem with foundation and concealer is that it doesn't stay put without me adding on quite a lot of powder. I'm going to be applying this both with a brush. This is the e.l.f. foundation blurring brush, as well as my Real Techniques foundation sponge. I pretty much always apply foundation with a sponge. I don't like using a brush because I find that it emphasizes texture on my skin, but it is easier to move a foundation stick around the face with a brush versus a sponge. For today, my skin is actually doing very well. I have a decent amount of redness on my cheeks as well as over the nose and my chin. This is just how my face looks normally. I have a lot of redness, but I have a couple of breakouts and not all of the red dots are active. I want the redness covered. That's pretty much it. I have another concealer in my little stash here that I might use. I am going to try this all over my face first though, both as a foundation and as a concealer to try, because this is supposed to be very full coverage. I think I'm going to do this side with the brush and this with the sponge, because I want to try the brush first. So let's apply some. It says on the website to apply 3 dots, like triangular dots, and buff it in. I am a little bit nervous about that. I don't think that's going to do much, but I'm going to try. So that, and see how far that takes me. It did barely anything. Toned it down a little bit, but definitely not enough. I'm gonna do a couple of swipes and see if that maybe is enough. Okay, we're getting somewhere. I would say that has light coverage on my cheek. Definitely not enough for me though. So I'm gonna just swipe on. I'm also gonna start tackling my forehead and chin and nose. And a little bit under the eyes. I mean, I do look a little bit ghostly. It is perhaps at the moment like half a shade too light. I'm not a fan of this applied with a brush. It looks fine on my forehead, and I think that's just because there's not a lot there. This is not full coverage on me. This is maybe medium coverage. It's actually tackled the spots surprisingly well, because they are, you can see I have a couple of remnants here. They are a lot brighter than my other redness. And I mean, for a medium coverage product, I'm not mad at it. I don't like the finish though with the brush, which is my issue. It's probably not very visible. Let me zoom you in a bit. I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to see, but I feel like it's just emphasized everything, especially on my nose. It's emphasized the pores around here. Emphasizes, you can sort of see this area where it emphasizes every little hair that I have on my face. My forehead doesn't look too bad, but I'm just, I'm not loving it. So we already know with the brush that 3 dots was definitely not enough, so I'm just gonna swipe this on my face with, in all honesty, maybe a bit too much, but, and then I have my Real Techniques Miracle Complexion Sponge. Coverage wise, I don't think I lost a lot of coverage with the sponge side actually, and I was kind of expecting that because sponges do soak up product. I mean, I do look a bit like a ghost. It is definitely cool in undertone, and I can see that now that it's on my face. I am going to try to build it up all over my face where I want some more coverage. So I'm going to do the under eyes on this eye. I'm going to build up more on my cheeks because I can still see the redness coming through. Chin as well. I'm not super impressed with how it's sitting over some of my spots who are a little bit dry. It's not very smooth over those areas, but the thing that annoys me the most is probably just the coverage. I don't want to add, I mean, I look ridiculous. I don't want to add any more to my nose because it's not looking horrible on the sponge side, but it is sort of coming to the tendency where if I continue, it's not going to look neat and it's going to look like it's sort of broken apart. And I do think the coolness and undertone on this is actually making the redness in my cheeks more apparent when it isn't like full coverage, because it doesn't come through as redness, it just looks pink. I mean, it's buildable, I'll give it that. It doesn't look horrible on this side now that I've built it up. But I do worry that I'm using a lot of product to be able to get it to a coverage level where it's actually covering my redness. I did only apply a little bit to my forehead because my forehead has the least amount of redness and it looks generally fine. It's just a tiny bit pink. I'm not loving it. I mean, I'm blending into the wall right now, and there is about half a shade to a shade maybe in shade difference. I think the biggest difference is not necessarily that it's too light, but it is too cool tone, so it's a little bit too like blue almost compared to my neck, which is a little bit more yellow. It built up, and I would say I'm still not at like full coverage. My Remarkable foundation covers anything, and that's sort of what I measure everything else that claims to be full coverage up against, because the tiniest bit of that will cover anything on your face. But this just doesn't. It looks nice on my forehead, like it's not clinging to anything, it looks kind of smooth and skin-like, but in the area here in between my eyebrows, it clings. And I mean, I have a feeling a little bit this is going to be one of those, if I touch my face it's going to come off, and it kind of did. I am going to give this a couple of minutes to see if it sets into my skin a little bit better. I am looking very shiny right now. The moisturiser I have used underneath this is very shiny and sort of dewy looking. I mean, you saw that before I began. But I want to see if this sets down. I'm not sold on this as a concealer because it is starting to settle into the lines underneath my eyes. I mean, every concealer does that. But I'm not in love. But I'm going to zoom you into some of the areas where I don't feel like it's necessarily sitting that well, just so you can sort of see it up close before I put any powder on. Hoping you're going to be able to see, but right here I have a bit of a dry spot and it's not sitting the nicest on top of that. You can also maybe see my nose. It's not great. It's actually not sitting too badly on top of these little bumps here. So I'm not opposed to that. I mean, it's giving me a lot of glow. You can probably see under the eyes there that it is starting to like settle into my lines. So right here where my eyebrow hairs sort of start and just like beneath them here, you can sort of, I hope you'll be able to see that it's sort of settling and looking a little bit cakey and dry. Versus on the rest of my forehead, it just generally looks very smooth. Now my forehead is the part of my face that requires the least amount of coverage, so I'm not surprised that it looks very nice up there, but I'm not loving how it's sitting near any parts of my face that is a bit dry. Another part that is a bit dry, you can see there I have a spot that is getting a little bit sort of dry. I'm not loving how it sits on that one, nor am I loving how it's sitting and settling around this one. But I mean, it's covered my face. So coverage wise, medium plus, I will say we're at with this one, which is a coverage level that I can absolutely work with. It looks very stark and white compared to my neck, which has a bit more yellow to it, but I think it's more the undertone that is off, not necessarily the colour of the foundation, because I don't think I could have actually gone much darker than this. Because most foundations, the light shade is light enough but the wrong undertone, and the next shade up is like 3 shades up, and that is too much again, and the next shade up also has a cool undertone, so it wouldn't really help. I'm not hating it, but I'm not loving it either. I'm gonna let it settle for a few minutes and then I'm gonna powder my face, and then I will be back with a sort of wrap up for the intro. I think I might take you over to my window to try and show it in natural lighting. I'm not sure how that's going to be, how that's going to look. And then I am thinking of doing an update later tonight when this has been on for 6-7 hours. It's currently 2 PM, almost on the dot. So I think I will have this on definitely until like 7, 8, maybe even 9 PM. So it's going to be a decent wear time. It's going to be more than about 6 hours. This claims 12-hour wear time, and I kind of do want to test that. I also would like to test this in warmer climates and more heat, maybe more humidity. Since this is a first impression, I'm not going to give sort of like a yes, you should buy it, no, it's not worth the money conclusion at the end. How much you're willing to spend on a foundation is very subjective, and what I'm looking for, someone else might not be looking for. I'm going to give you my thoughts of having worn it once, and in a couple of weeks, about 6, maybe 7, 8, depends on how long I take to try and play more with this and film. I'm going to do a more in-depth review where I talk more about different ways I've tried to apply this. I'm going to try it with different primers. On their website, they recommend using it with their Veil Mineral Primer. I actually do have a little one of that, so I'm going to try pairing that with this. I also am going to try it with my Fenty primer, which is more of a smoothing primer, and I find that that helps, especially when it comes to the dryness and the texture, and it usually makes it sit better around my nose. I'm not actually hating how it looks on my nose, but I would have maybe liked a teeny bit more coverage on my nose. I'm going to set my face, and I will be using a completely transparent powder. I'm going to use the Fenty one, which looks white in the pan but has zero colour, so it's not going to alter the colour of this. But it is a bit too shiny, and I am going to film another video after this, and I do want to put blush, bronzer, highlighter on, and it's too wet for me to do that without that looking splotchy. So I'm going to set my face lightly with this one. I say lightly, it's going to be sort of not very light but all over the face, and I'm going to show you how it looks in natural lighting. Definitely takes down the shine, which I don't mind. I mean, I look more white now, but that's fine. I am pale. I'm blending in with the wall. I really don't like it now. It just looks so dry. So dry. It looks awful. I've turned the exposure down a bit so that you can hopefully see just how much texture this is bringing out. Both along my cheekbones, on my nose. None of this was visible before I powdered, at least not to this extent. And you can also see the redness. This is definitely not for you if you have dry spots and you don't want them to be visible, because yikes. Maybe I should have taken you and shown you natural lighting before I did this, but I'm going to show you natural lighting now. So the exposure is back to normal. We're right in front of the window. Hopefully you can see. I'm not loving it. I'm also very shaky when I have to hold my camera like this. You can see the redness, the dryness. I am not impressed, at least not set with a powder. It's currently 8 PM or a little over 8, and my makeup looks fine. I still don't love it, and I'm wearing more makeup now. About an hour and a half after filming the last clip in this one, I ended up filming this makeup playtime with this eye look as the focus. It was a train wreck of a video. I have no idea how it's going to turn out, but nothing went right, but it still turned out semi-usable. But I want to put colour back into my skin, so I'm wearing bronzer and highlighter on top of the foundation and the powder that I have used in this video. And when I want to put on my bronzer, my forehead looks fine. I'm currently getting a tiny bit shiny. Maybe see when I'm pressing, I'm getting a tiny bit of product on my fingers there. I'm getting a little shiny, but it went on fine on my forehead. It looks really nice and smooth, and I really like how it looks on my forehead. On the rest of my face, when I put the bronzer on, the texture, it became even more apparent, and even the texture that I didn't think was noticeable last time. I talked a lot about the texture on my cheekbones and on my nose. I mean, I hope you can see my nose. I'm going to zoom in a second. But like this entire cheek area, it looks horrible. It looks splotchy. A lot of the coverage, I'd say a lot, some of the coverage disappeared, and I'm not a fan. Putting on highlighter sort of saved my cheeks a little bit, because it's not as dry looking anymore. And it saved my nose until my dog started licking me, which is why I'm a little bit red at the tip of my nose. It always happens, my dog likes giving me kisses. It's not been a particularly busy day for me. I've filmed this video and I've filmed this eye look, And I think this Makeup Playtime for the eyes are going to be up already, but I really enjoyed the combination. It is the purple shade that you see is Colourpop 143, and the glittery gorgeousness is JD Glow Galaxy Shadow in Unexpected, and it is just so stunning. I still feel the same about this Hourglass stick foundation. I'm not loving it. I am absolutely going to play around with it with different primers. I also want to play around with it using my hands. I think that's going to give me more of a sheer finish, but I think that might, and I'm guessing, might give me a more skin-like finish. I also remembered after filming the Makeup Playtime that I have a powder that I think might have worked better for this one, which is the Hourglass Ambient Lighting Powder in Diffused Light, which is a yellow toned pale powder, but I forgot about it. And when I originally wanted to get the Fenty powder, I wanted a powder that was invisible, that didn't give any cover, and that would just mattify the skin and just bring the shine down. Not really dry my skin out, because I like that powder a lot. I just did not envision this to go that dry, so I think a luminous powder is definitely going to help. I also think something like a smoothing primer, especially on my nose and on my texture, might also help. I'm going to try that. And as I said, I do plan on filming a more in-depth review, even though I think this video is longer than I originally thought, in a couple of weeks, maybe about 2.5 to 3 months. It takes me a while to properly try foundations and stuff, because I want to try them not just in different techniques and application, but also under different weather and circumstances. Now, we're coming into spring, we still have snow. I live in Norway. It is the weather here half of the year, so I'm not going to get to test this in like humid climates or a warm climate. That might be the summer, because it doesn't really get that humid and warm here. I'm also not envisioning me jumping into a pool or the ocean to test the waterproofness of this. I am actually looking forward to trying to playing with this with different primers, as I said, the ambient lighting powder, and something that I discovered, or I'm a bit surprised by, is how much I like this underneath my eyes as a concealer. After I first initially applied it under my eyes, I said I'm not going to like it because it's going to crease and it's going to be too thick and everything. It looks flawless. And you might think that's flawless. Yeah, this is flawless on my eyes. I have lines there, so they're not gonna like disappear. And there is, I don't call it creasing when it sits into those lines, because that's what anything does on my skin. It looks amazing. And the only product that looks this great under my eyes is Tarte Shape Tape. So I'm pretty impressed with this as a concealer. It's a pretty expensive concealer if that's gonna be how I end up using it. But it does look phenomenal, and I am hoping I will be able to find a way to make it look a little bit nicer on my skin. I'm also going to play around with it, just not with any powder, because I think it looked fine without the powder. A little bit textured, but not as bad as it did when I put the powder on. And I do have some cream face products that I want to try and use up this year. And I think pairing it with this might be the way to do it, because I think that's going to look the nicest, at least until I can figure out a way to not make it so textured. I'm hopeful that you're going to be able to see that glow as my highlighter, but just how patchy it's starting to look, especially down here and around the bumps and stuff. It's just not looking good. And my under eyes look amazing. Like, they look phenomenal. They've held up like this for 6, 7, 8, 7 hours, and I'm really impressed. Now, as I said, my forehead looks great. I might have applied a bit too much bronzer, but we can deal. My chin as well did not handle the bronzer application very nicely. It just looks even more textured. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see the full review that will be coming out in a couple of months, subscribe to my channel down below, and I will hopefully see you again in another video. Bye!